What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Team Chat Podcast, a video game show. I am one of your hosts, Jared Wilson, joined to my right by Rachel Mogan.
Buongiorno.
Buongiorno to you as well. How are you this fine day?
Doing fine, but it's a little odd. We're recording earlier than usual.
I know.
Yeah.
A lot earlier in the day.
A lot earlier in the day. I get a little bit of extra PTO to go vote.
So did your civic duty.
Even though I didn't need the whole 2 hours, still, you get to take it.
Yeah,
so.
Why not? It's PTO. It's provided.
I got the
Take
sticker.
advantage.
I've got proof.
Did you know you can go to Home Slice and get a free slice of pizza with that sticker?
I didn't know that.
You can. We did it last week. It's cool.
Oh my God.
It's delicious. Free pizza.
Did you go to the one on South Congress? Mm-hmm. Oh my God. Where did you park?
Actually, like in their parking lot.
What day of the week was it?
Like Thursday at lunch. Friday at lunch.
How did they have parking spaces?
We got the last one.
I have never once in my life seen parking at that location. That's insane.
But yeah, they were giving away free slice. You got to like just trade it in though and stick it on their wall, and they give you a new sticker that says "I voted" with their little like pizza dude on it.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Are there any restrictions on which slice you can get?
Cheese or pepperoni?
Oh,
yeah.
But I like vegetables.
Well, you can make the sacrifice once, maybe.
No.
All right. Well, when we're not getting free slices of pizza or voting, go do your civic duty, everybody. Vote. It's very important this year, especially. We don't have to tell you that. But go and do that. Then come back and listen to us here on Team Chat Podcast.
Or while you're waiting in line.
Ooh, that's true
for
too.
3
because
hours
I have been
while
seeing
you're voting.
The lines
yeah.
are bad. We'd hit that early voting. Who knows what they're going to look like on day of.
So I used to be the kind of person that liked to go on the day because I liked the
pomp and circumstance.
Yeah, the pomp and circumstance. But I am old now. And
that just will not do.
I have limited years left in my life. I can't be wasting it in line.
You just got to go quick.
Anyways, if you didn't plan ahead and you didn't early vote, then take us with you because we'll be able to be there the whole time.
Yep, making that time in line be a breeze. So we're here today to talk about those video games. You can listen to us do that on video game services. That would be cool. But podcast services around the World Wide Web, such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and others, pretty much wherever you can listen to them. You can also watch a video version of each show. Ooh, my timed light went to blue.
Gosh, it's
5 o'clock.
Me.
That lets me know it's time to quit for the day. But you can also watch a video version of each episode over on our YouTube channel. Links for all that are in the description below. You can find us on social media at Facebook, Instagram, and Threads, as well as over on Discord, where we have a lot of great conversation when we're not here recording the show. And finally, if you'd like to help make the show bigger and better, you can head over to patreon.com/teamchatpodcast, just like Allison H, Ark, Brandon W, Bro Mogans, Future Rascal, Super Saiyan Ace, Erica L, Elise F, James K, Michael B, Michael S, Snooty Boots, Susan M, and Zach S have done. Whereas for as little as $1 a month, you can support the show by going over to patreon.com. And in return, we'll give you cool perks like getting the episodes early before their general release each week and access to a private channel on our Discord server, the Rogues Gallery, as well as at our $5 tier. If you sign up there, you get early access for a week early of our subsidiary show, Team Chit Chat, which actually the most recent episode just went public this week for the general release, where Mogan and I talk about childhood media.
There's
a lot of childhood traumas out there.
Yeah.
We got a lot of those, but specifically just the ones that were caused by childhood media.
It's a good one. And Jared has a hysterical line at the very end. So you really got to watch the whole thing. I was dying.
It's a scary.
We got finished recording that episode, and as soon as he hit pause on the recording, I was like, Jared. I'm like the disappointment in my voice.
Why is that disappointing? Because you got to go listen to it. But I'm just saying, funny. It's a legitimate fear. It's a legitimate trauma.
Oh, it was very funny.
Quasi self-induced, but legitimate.
Indeed.
But before we get into the main topic of the day, but also there is a lot of great ways that you can help support the show. If you're not doing that for free, as they say, and you can do that by writing us reviews, subscribing wherever you're listening to, or watching the show. All that great stuff gets the word out there to the masses, and for that we are thankful and love each and every one of our viewers, listeners, and patrons alike. Heart emojis.
XOXO smooches.
But before we get into the main topic of the day, let's get a little bit of news and what's coming out soon in our Moment with Mogan.
Indeed, we are going to do just the tiniest bit of backtracking for a few of the sort of highlights of what came out recently.
Yeah, because we haven't done an episode in a couple weeks.
Yeah, we were finishing up our Until Dawn.
Our Until Dawn stream, which is also all out. All of the VODs for that are out on our YouTube channel, so you can go catch up on that as well. It was a very fun time.
One of my friends who I haven't seen in a while, like face to face, she was like, I've missed you, so I've been watching all of your Until Dawn playthrough. She was like, this game, she doesn't really game that much, so she had never played Until Dawn. She was like, this game is hilarious.
It's a riot. It's supposed to be scary, but it's mostly funny. So have a good time with that.
Speaking of scary games, Clock Tower Rewind, which is a recent remaster, like total overhaul from the ground up, remaster of a 1995 Famicom game by the same name, Clock Tower, has launched on October 29th for PC, Switch, PS5, and Xbox. It's kind of one of those like cult horror classics. So if you're into old horror games and you want to get a little piece of history that's been a bit updated for the modern time, Clock Tower Rewind should be on your list. Dragon Age the Veilguard. That's why we're talking about. We'll get to it. Quasi. But as of this episode's air date, Dragon Age the Veilguard is out now for PC, PS5, Xbox Series X and S. Redacted comes out today as well for PC, PS5, Xbox Series X and S. That's not like I'm not being cheeky. That's the name of the game.
Tell us.
What is it? Horizon Zero Dawn Remaster is out as well for PC and PS5. Did you have something to say?
Did we need it? But I don't know.
Stalker Legends of the Zone Trilogy. Who knows what that is, but I love the wild name. That's out for the Switch today as well, and then getting us into early November, Pharmagia is out for PC, Switch, and PS5 on November 1st.
Is that a pizza topping?
It really sounds like one. I'm not in
a cheese.
I'm not entirely certain if this is still accurate, but if it is, that's awesome news. Stardew Valley version 1.6 is coming to console and mobile November 4th. I believe this is the version that's already available for PC. I do not have Stardew Valley on PC, so that is useless information to me, but now it should be, I hope, on console and mobile.
You ever think about firing that up every once in a while?
I do. Valley? I mean, kind of every time it gets to be almost December, I'm like, maybe it's time to start over.
Sam has her like biggest conference of the year coming up in a couple weeks, and she was talking about how she was like, maybe when I get home, I'll just do nothing and play Switch. And I was like,
I've got a
sounds like you're firing up some Stardew Valley again.
I mean, I've heard that the 1.6 update changed a lot and
really?
added new content and stuff. So if there's ever been a better time to start a new file, I feel like it's right now.
Should we then revisit Stardew Valley?
We probably should.
It's been a long time. The update comes out. We spend a few hours piddling around seeing what's new. Maybe start a co-op.
We say a few hours, and then we'll go back and check our file time.
We'll be like, oh shit,
150 hours. We're like, what year is it?
And you guys have all been sitting back in the wings being like, when's a new episode coming out? But we got distracted by Stardew.
We didn't realize the show wasn't happening. We thought it was still the same day.
It was happening in our heads.
But in other news, Crossed Wires is coming to PC on November 4th. Metal Slug Tactics is out for everything. PC, Switch, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S on November 5th. Planet Coaster 2 is out for PC, PS5, and Xbox Series X and S on November 6th. Brighter Shores is out for PC and Mac. We got one for Mac.
A Mac game. Love it.
That's on November 6th as well. So is Mirthwood for PC only. And a game I'm actually very excited about and probably will get very shortly after release, if not on day one. Mario and Luigi Brothership.
Oh,
it's already coming out. Yes.
Wait, is Mario Party Jamboree out?
I think that's already out, my friend. But
we missed some stuff.
I have complicated feelings about more recent Mario Party games, so we'll save that for another day. But Mario and Luigi Brothership is coming to the Switch only, obviously, on November 7th. And then the 7th is what day of the week next week? That's like
Thursday.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
because 5th is Tuesday.
Well,
and
we'll
all
finish
know
out
what
everything.
Is.
Okay. Metro Awakening VR is out for PSVR 2, MetaQuest, and Steam VR on November 7th. So is Goat Simulator Remastered for PC, PS5, and Xbox Series X and S. Unrailed 2, back on track. Early Access is out for PC on the 7th, and that gets us through next week.
There we have it, everybody.
Yeah, but Brothership, I'm actually really excited about that game.
I completely forgot that was happening.
I think it looks so fun. I really hope that it's not a Mario Wonder situation
Yeah.
where like it looks incredible, but it's like a little underwhelming in the end. And I'm a big Luigi stan, the superior brother. So fingers crossed that it's going to be good. I think it looks really adorable.
Nice. Yeah, I'll have to try to pick that up as well. I just completely, it just whoop, flew by. I heard it announced. I thought it looked cool. Just missed it.
They really didn't give a lot of like lead time up to
That's
the release
true.
of that game.
It's not like I've been seeing ads for it
No,
either.
it came on us fast. So
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
hopefully it does well. And as you said, hopefully it's fun.
I trust that Nintendo won't completely fumble a Mario
Yeah,
flagship
I feel
title.
like they're going to put some effort
Yeah,
behind
they
that
probably
one.
put a little effort behind it, at least a smidge.
All right. Well, today's topic is one that we are both very excited about, and one that I especially have been waiting to do for a very long time.
Very long time.
But just because, like, I played the game back in the day, took a break from it, finished it up earlier
Took
this
a
year.
break.
A solid, like, 6-year break. It's all right. And then came back to it. But today is actually a very fitting day to do this review because it's the release date of Dragon Age: The Veilguard. Today, we're going to be reviewing Dragon Age Inquisition, the previous game in the Dragon Age series that came out a whopping 10 years ago.
2014.
In 2014.
Woof.
So, obviously, it's been a minute.
It's been a while.
You could say we're late to the game.
We've been joking about making a new sort of like sub episode category, kind of
Yeah.
like the playlist that we have on the YouTube, and we're calling this series more or less late to the game. And it's things like my Dishonored 2 review, which was 10 fucking years old.
Which,
and stuff
to be
like
fair,
this.
a lot of our reviews are fairly late to the game.
the
when we get to
Valorant
them.
thing. Like, it's like, yeah, we're just now
That
getting
one,
to
that
it.
one, though, I say counts because
I
it
think it
was
counts
its
too.
console release.
Yes,
you know,
I agree
and
with
so I feel like that one slides as a recent release. But it is funny how much we'll keep up with some stuff, and then every once in a while we throw in one like this that just
A nice
throws
little
it back.
curveball.
But I mean, come on, what a better day. We're not going to be able to jump into Veilguard day one, unfortunately. But
We would have the time.
That's true, too.
In order to form any amount of first impressions with a game that I now understand is like Dragon Age, you're gonna need
time.
bare minimum of 10 hours, I would say.
yeah.
And ideally, like probably a little bit more than
Like
that.
20.
Just to even be able to scratch the surface of what you're in.
Yeah. So, since we're not doing that, we thought this would be the perfect time to be able to jump back in and kind of revisit Dragon Age Inquisition. And since it is more fresh on our minds, because we both actually finished the game completely for the first time this year. So kind of maybe some things that Works would like to see in Veilguard, maybe some things different, whatever. We'll just kind of see where we go with it.
And we have sort of differing perspectives because unlike you, I have none of the foundation in Dragon Age because you've played Dragon Age 2?
I've played them all, actually.
You've played them all, yeah.
Yeah, I actually
Oh my God.
Dragon Age Origins, which at this point very dated and everything, just kind of in its look and everything, but still a solid game.
I think you loaned it to me and I like played a little bit of it and I went, this is not for me.
And it's
It was a lot.
all of the Dragon Ages, though, I like get weird. I will say the first Dragon Age Origins is one that like I started. It was like my first big RPG game to play, and so what I was starting to say is that I've restarted them all. Pretty much at one point or another because I'm like, oh, I'm doing this completely wrong. The first Dragon Age game, I was dying everywhere, and I just because I didn't know. Hadn't played like a game like this before, that you had to actually give your
You have
party
to put
things.
the armor on. You gotta give yourself new weapons.
I just thought everybody
Yeah.
leveled up and they were just my companions, and I didn't understand like the teamwork aspect of it and how that all plays together. So I restarted that game and tried again. Then my PS3 got stolen, so I restarted again.
The life of a gamer is complex and
hard.
difficult.
You don't know what's going to come up in your way to keep you from playing these games, and sometimes it just takes 10 years to get around to it.
Which is why we're here in 2024 to bring you a review of a game from 2014.
Exactly. So, without further ado, let's get into it. But just as a word of warning, we are going to be talking about spoilers, and we're going to probably be talking about spoilers throughout. Because again, this game is 10 years old.
It's also very, very story and narrative driven.
Yes.
So we can't, it's not a part of the game we can gloss over and have any amount of, thoroughness in our review.
So, with that being said, the game kicks off the background, kind of the story of Dragon Age Inquisition. Well, first off, it is developed by BioWare, published by EA Games. Which, right there, you've already got a wonderful pedigree coming from BioWare with RPGs. The previous Dragon Age games, The space one, Mass Effect.
The space one.
I just went completely blank for 2 seconds. The KOTOR games, Knights of the Old Republic, and now, and stuff like that. So, you're probably you're getting some RPG pros in this regard. And so we're jumping into this one. Dragon Age Inquisition starts off with the conclave being called between the Knights Templar and or the Templars, I guess, not the Knights Templar of the Crusades.
They're just called the Templars.
The Templars. And then the Mages. And basically, I think this is actually one of the great beginnings of a game, because the main menu shows the line of Templars and the line of Mages marching towards the abbey or church, whatever, cathedral at the top of the hill where they're going to have this meeting. And as soon as you hit start game, it blows up.
Yeah,
with a massive shockwave that just rolls through and wipes out everybody coming at it. And you're like, what is happening now?
Very well done. A really great start screen. What a choice.
So good. And basically what happens is you find out that the leader, and I do apologize to Dragon Age fans if I butcher lore, because while I have played them all, I'm not clear on all the ins and outs, And so those fade over time. But this conclave is supposed to be led by the divine Justinia, who is the head of the Chantry, which is kind of the ruling religious body of the world of Thedas. And she is killed in this explosion. Obviously, hundreds, if not thousands of others are killed in this explosion as well. And in its wake, there are now all of these rifts to the Fade, which is the spirit realm of the world of Dragon Age. And out of these rifts in the sky are pouring out demons who are, of course, terrorizing the countryside, killing and murdering and just being a general menace. And so, as a result, it's up to you, which we'll kind of get into a little bit of this in a second. But
why you're in charge.
Yeah, why you're the special one here. You are tasked with heading up an Inquisition, which is to, be formed of all the peoples of Theta. So you have the job of handling political situations, military situations, and just uniting all the people to go against this very real threat, world-ending threat that these Fade rifts represent. So that's kind of the basis and background.
You're
for what's
in
going
charge
on.
of forming a security force, eventually basically your own small army. You do way more than what you would think the term Inquisition and Inquisitor imply.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not at all like that their Spanish Inquisition you might
Everyone
be thinking
expected
of. It's very different. So don't let that stick in your mind too much, because it's a totally different vibe.
And so that basically kicks off. So then why are you're unnamed character that you can then choose to be from a human as an origin story, a elf,
a dwarf, and a Kunari.
I chose elf.
I chose Kunari.
Oh, very nice. I haven't played as Kunari.
So,
I should.
We'll talk about this more later, about what the differences between the races are, because I feel like they weren't that impactful.
No,
we'll talk about it.
I would say in this one, they're not near as impactful as they were in previous
Basically
games.
not. We'll get to it later.
It doesn't really matter. But basically, you are at this meeting when it's supposed to be happening, and through some event, you are actually spared from the explosion, wake up, find yourself with a mark on your hand that you then quickly realize has the ability to close these rifts in the sky. And you don't know where this power came from. You don't know why you have it, of all people, and why you live. Obviously, people are suspicious of you and are like, the fuck?
Well, everybody's super suspicious of you because they find you, and you're basically imprisoned at the very start of the game because they saw you come out of one of the rifts. Mm-hmm. So the fact that you've come out of the rift, you have a magic hand that can close other rifts, and you appear to be the only survivor from this cataclysm. It's like, you probably did it, bro. Mm-hmm. Which, to be fair, kind of, I would say, I'd be like, no, they probably did it.
Yeah, it looks very incriminating.
It looks very suspicious.
But through the course of events, you show your innocence enough to where they do trust you and kind of be like, okay, you're on the level. We don't understand you necessarily, but we are willing to work with you, but you do have to take on this huge responsibility.
Yes, and it's also important to note that your character has a certain amount of amnesia about what happened. Right. So you also don't know why you came out of a rift, where'd the mark come from, what happened in the first place to cause the cataclysm. You also don't know that. You're trying to fill in the gaps throughout the game.
Mm-hmm. So with that, it starts You do the first few missions, you start gathering your party, because in Dragon Age games, you do play with a party of 4, including yourself. And, you meet some old favorites. You got Varric Tethras, that's his name. Your dwarf companion from Dragon Age 2, and just all around cool character.
Just all around great.
I've talked about
yes,
him a
you
lot
have.
to you from my experience, and now you finally got to experience him in person.
And I really appreciated having all of the background of your impressions of him, because I feel like when I played the game, I was like, yeah, Jarrett nailed it.
He's awesome.
He's awesome. He's
like a rogue
rules.
adventurer. He fills the rogue role in your party, but he's also like a writer.
He's a famous novelist.
yeah.
He's like super famous.
And it's funny that we'll talk about it more in a second, but you do several like side missions associated with like his writing and trying to like get in more publishers or more work or more stories for his next book.
Yeah.
It's really funny how they work, great how they work his characterization in, but he's a fantastic character. Cassandra, who's kind of like the quasi head of the Inquisition until you take over. She is also from 2. Dragon Age 2 kicks off with Varric telling her the story of the protagonist Hawk of Dragon Age 2. And so he kind of like jumps in and out as a narrator with Cassandra.
And again, Cassandra, like it's a similar thing. I went back and watched lore recap videos
very
from
nice,
the
very nice.
early
Okay.
games, because I do feel like jumping into Inquisition with none of the background, I did suffer for it to a certain extent.
Really? Okay.
So those lore videos actually really helped. And I was like, oh, it's nice to see how they sort of kept the same framing device, because at the beginning of the previous game, Cassandra was an interrogator. And
Right.
here you are in Inquisition, and you are once again being interrogated by Cassandra. And it's like, dang it, Cassandra.
Just give us a break and
Just give me a
listen
break
to
for
us for
once.
a second. And then who else is your starting party?
What's his name? Solas.
Solas, the mage elf, and then
And Solas wasn't
that's it.
from
That's
the previous
it's those
game,
first
right?
3. No, he's new.
He's new.
And so anyway, you go out, you start doing quests, and where should we kind of jump into from here, you think?
That's a good question. So I feel like to me, the logical place to start is the gameplay mechanics.
Yeah,
and
I
I
agree.
feel like that's an important place to start too, because there's a lot to unpack there.
Yes. Okay, so let's do that. Let's dive in.
Well, like where to even fucking
Where do you even start with that? So the big
God.
thing with this one, and an upgrade, I will say, from the previous Dragon Age games, there is a lot more land. There's a lot more territory to discover, a lot more regions to go to. Dragon Age 2, you were locked in a city. You would sometimes go to like caves and caverns outside of it, or a small area outside of the city, but you never left that specific spot.
I saw it in the
felt
lore recap
very-
videos, and I was like, I could never have played that game.
It felt so contained.
Yeah.
This game feels big. It feels wild. And it really does kind of capture an open world feel, in the sense that like you can traverse basically anywhere, and it kind of lets you do that, even with like weird, it's kind of clunky, but like your jumps and stuff like that, but like trying to get over stuff, but you can pretty much go anywhere, which is a difference from other Dragon Age games. And I remember playing that and just kind of being, oh wow, this feels like just so much more open and expansive. But with that come other things, such as resource collecting for crafting and various things like that. So there's always like plants, irons, metals that you're picking up out of rocks and different stuff like that, and collecting, because all these things are going to eventually lead to crafting.
Yeah.
You can get to that in a second. You also have your normal like character builds that you're trying to get as you are building your XP through scavenging, skill trees. You define your like weapon play class. You're like, do you want to be the rogue? Do you want to be the mage?
Yes, actually, let's expand
warrior,
on
I
that,
guess.
because I feel like that's pretty important. So when you're starting out the game, there are actually only, even though there are multiple characters that can fill those classes, there aren't as many character classes as you would think.
Yeah.
It really is just warrior, rogue, or mage. Those are the only 3.
And there are like, and this one does have different classifications of each. So it's not just like you're a straight level of this. Like, for example, I played as an elf warrior. What did you do?
I was also a warrior. Dang it. We should have compared notes, because if I had known, I wouldn't have picked the warrior.
Yeah, but I'm interested to see how you kind of feel about this, because again, something we can talk about when we actually get into mechanics and like the characterization and stuff like that. I wish I had done something else as an elf. Oh, really?
Actually,
Oh
yeah.
shit. Okay.
I also like so when I was watching some of the lore videos, I noticed that every single clip that was being used, whoever the player character was, they were a mage, and I was like, ugh, I
Did
feel
I
like
miss
that
out?
might be like a little footnote that I kind of culturally missed, where the mage may have been the more fun class to be.
So that's a note then for Veilguard.
Yes, it really is.
I
So
definitely won't be warrior.
No. I'm not doing warrior again. Even though I actually did wind up liking my build quite a bit.
Yeah.
I didn't hate it, but I just kind of went, not popular, eh?
Here's more the thing of why I will go ahead and say this. Here's more the thing why I didn't like this. I normally always do go for like, you know, if I'm doing like an RPG, like you saw in my original like Baldur's Gate 3 character before I did Barty McFly, you know, I was like a big bulky barbarian.
You're a
half
natural
orc.
born barbarian.
Yeah, and so
as
like,
all people from Oklahoma are.
I tend to like build a similar like body type to me and stuff like that. But this time I was like, you know what? No, I'm gonna go elf this time, be a little different. And canonically in Dragon Age, elves are not the biggest or like the bulkiest of people.
No, they're little thin skinny wafers.
Exactly.
They're fucking Nilla wafers out there.
And so I'm out here with a heavy, like not two-handed like axe greatsword build,
But like a
a
mace.
sword and shield build where I'm just like smashing the shit out of people with my shield, doing huge like running charges and barreling into people. And I'm like,
Thematically
This
does
little twink couldn't,
not
you know what I
fit.
mean?
This bitch could never. See,
this is too little. And I was like, I do not need my little twink character. I need a big bear character.
so I mean, in my case, I picked the Kunari, and I also did a warrior, and for me, it made total sense.
Kunari are
'Cause
the warrior
I'm
class.
Big. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're like you're quite a bit bigger than a regular human. But I did play the female Kunari, so even then, I was like kind of smallish because the female Kunari like default sizing is a little bit smaller than the male one, and even so, there were times where I felt like, specifically in cutscenes, there were quite a few times where I feel like the game kind of assumed you weren't a Kunari because like the height differential, like I was always kind of not in frame, and it was honestly like, it was pretty funny. I eventually just got used to it, but there were times where the framing was just so weird, and I was like, I wonder if this is just for the Kunari or if this is something that happens to everyone.
The framing, I do know there were like sometimes the framing is off for me, but no, I kind of have a feeling it's probably because you were a Kunari.
It's probably, I was like, this is hilarious. I do not fit in this game.
Yeah. Okay, so we've kind of talked about those are the different classes you can have. You know, and the basic gameplay to kind of simplify it is that, you know, it follows the quest format. You have different quests that you can go accomplish to, you know, achieve your goal of working through the main story. There are side quests that you can do. Some are resource gathering. Some are helping out other factions. Some will help you get other party members. Some will help you get, you know, more just things to do in the world and stuff like that. But the biggest thing that is really different from in Inquisition from other Dragon Age games, and I'm curious to see if they follow through with this with Veilguard, because as of this point, I've seen some gameplay, I've seen some trailers, but I really don't know anything about Veilguard.
I don't either.
Because I'm trying to stay media blackout on it.
Me too.
Until I get a chance to play it. So it would be curious to see, and I want to know your thoughts on one of the big gameplay mechanics of this, and kind of like your quasi journal of a sorts, the war table.
Oh, okay.
So
I have so many opinions about this.
Okay, so basically the war table is once you kind of have formed the Inquisition and you have your main leaders, you and your leadership will go into this table. It's a map of Ferelden, and it's split into Orlais and Thedas, the two main territories. And in this, you can choose different regions to go do your different missions. These missions cost a currency called Inquisition power.
Yeah, it's just called power.
That you earn by either completing missions, completing side tasks, and stuff like that, along with your normal character XP. And so you'll spend your Inquisition power to do this. You can also use the Inquisition power to unlock various perks along the way from your different advisors. Which your different advisors are Cullen, he's your military guy.
Handsome. Baby
very
face.
handsome guy. Liliana is your spy master. She's great. Also
Assassin waifu.
Also a carryover character from Origins.
Yes, I saw
and
that.
stuff. And then Josephine, who's a new character for this game, and she's kind of like your diplomat.
Yeah, she's from a noble background, so she's very refined, and she knows how to play the political game.
Exactly. And so you'll get various benefits and perks from them as you unlock more power. You can also use them because there's also like the main quests on this war table that you'll accomplish and play. You can also have like side quests that you can assign one of your advisors to handle that they'll like auto complete after a certain amount of time.
And that certain amount of time listed on the war table when you're looking at assigning those out, that's real time.
Yeah, real time.
So if you see that one of those tasks is going to take your companion character 18 hours to complete, that means you're coming back tomorrow to check back in with them in real time, not in game time.
Exactly. And so the nice thing, though, is certain advisors can complete those tasks faster.
I did like that.
Which is kind of cool. So you can kind of like plan out how you want to attack these side quests to kind of like get the most bang for your buck.
And it always sort of makes thematic sense. Like anytime there's a task on the board that feels like the sneaky route is going to be the most efficient, you'll notice that Liliana always takes the least amount of time to do it. So there's definitely like visual hints on the board so that you can kind of always know, all right, well, which of these options is the game sort of pointing you toward, but you don't have to go with that if you don't want to. And what if Liliana's busy? What if I've already got her doing something over here? Cullen will have to go do your thing over there, boy.
But what's kind of fun though too about these is that they are like continuations. They do like it's like they're mini quest lines that you can just like change, because like you'll do that, you'll get an outcome from that quest, and they'll be like, oh, part 2, this is now happening, and you're like, cool, okay, well now send Liliana to fix it. And so like that's where I liked where like a lot of Varric's side quests.
Yeah, he had
like
a lot that
doing
were like
his like books and stuff like that, like and getting more of his stories. Those were all coming out of those, and so it's really like fun extra lore bits. But yeah, so what did you think of the war table?
So first of all, I just, as someone that was completely new to Dragon Age period, the early like 5 to 10 hours of the game were so overwhelming on all fronts from the mechanics.
I will agree with that.
I mean, just navigating the different menus was a struggle because there's like a little rotary wheel that you have to pull up to be able to do anything, but even just using the rotary wheel got really annoying after a while. The fact that you had to bring up the rotary wheel to pull up the full map, and that there wasn't like a hotkey for just pulling up the full map at any given time. Oh my God, that made me so mad.
I will actually say that is a BioWare thing.
Oh yeah.
They do that in like Mass Effect and stuff too.
These people.
it's just that way.
If they haven't fixed that in Veilguard,
immediate
right back
uninstall.
to the store it's going. So that was my first complaint. My second complaint is that there were just so many things that weren't intuitive to me, like the fact that each of the character classes, Rogue, Warrior, Mage, had specific like equipment that were locked to them.
Yes.
Like the fact that only warriors can wield shields, two-handed axes, or single-handed swords, maces, etc. The fact that only mages can have staffs, and that's kind of their only option.
Yeah.
The fact that only rogues can do either bows or daggers. Like those things just weren't intrinsically making sense to me. So it took me a long time to just kind of like figure that shit out, because I feel like the game didn't really explain it super well in the early time. So I struggled a lot with that. And then the war table. So eventually I did come to really like the war table.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, I just like those first couple of missions, it was so confusing to me. Like the gears just weren't clicking together, that when I was, air quotes, done with a mission, I had to go back to the war table to keep planning out other stuff.
Yeah.
Because in my mind, like I had gotten back from a mission and I was in that first area that you're in, Haven? Is that what they call it?
Yes.
Yeah. So you're in Haven, which is like at the base of where the cataclysm happened, and you're sort of running like a refugee camp sort of deal. I wandered around for so long in Haven, just not understanding that I had to physically
go to the war table to initiate the next one.
Yeah, I kept pulling up the journal, pulling up the menu. I couldn't figure out
and
what it wanted me to do.
And so you start doing all the like side quests from your companions who are in there, hoping that like,
That's exactly what I did.
And I will say that happened to me too.
And I was so, by the time I realized like, oh, you have to physically go to the room to make this happen.
Yeah.
That pissed me off.
Yeah.
Now I gotta say, I do like the function of the war table, but the fact that you have to physically go back to it to have those little planning meetings, that made me so mad.
And that you can't like teleport to it.
Yes, the fact that there's no shortcut. You have to go back to Haven
and go through the whole complex. Or you have to
go back to Skyhold and you have to fucking walk there.
Yeah.
Oh my God. That was so annoying. But I really appreciated the war table in the end, because I did notice that some of the items that I got, like specifically a couple of the mage staffs and a few, well, really it was the mage staffs, like some of the best mage staffs I ever got came from those random little one-off side quests.
Yeah, like what Dorian would do sometimes later.
The ones that you wouldn't even have to attend. I would just send one of the assistants and they'd be like, oh, we're reporting back. Here, you got this awesome staff. And I'm like, oh my God, this is the best weapon I've got so far.
But then it sucks because you can't use it.
Yeah, because you
give it
have
to like
to
your
be
party member,
a certain level to
Yeah.
be able to use items.
which is what I think I kind of ran into with this, and kind of like quasi changing subjects from the war table, because I feel like this kind of goes into it well. And just somewhat.
I also didn't have any other complaints about
okay.
the war table, so I'm done venting.
That was just a big new thing of it. And then, I kind of ran into that too. I had confusion of like, what was I actually doing? And then two, I did have a hard time for whatever reason. And I know, like, and I noticed it later, like it did mark like key, like main missions a little different.
Right.
But I also know I dicked around for a long time, unintentionally thinking I was doing main missions,
see.
but going to other areas and just more doing side activity.
I can understand that because I also feel like I just, again, not being familiar with the game's like visual cues.
Yeah.
Especially in the early game, there's just so much on screen. It's hard to figure out what you're air quotes supposed to do.
Yes.
And the game doesn't really constrain you in that. So
Right.
the fact that you haven't done the next big story thing doesn't really matter because you've got 100 other things on the map that you could be doing.
Which is also great. Like there's not
It's both a pro and a con.
Exactly.
Yeah,
there's
it's
not
very
like
neutral.
there's not like and that's kind of one of the things I noticed is that like when I was playing it, especially when I was like really doing my final push to finish it up, I, was just like, I'm here, I'm playing this game.
Story
and
only.
all this stuff. Well, no, not so much that because, not to be a downer.
We
but
all get sidetracked.
But because especially at that point, I was like jumping it back into it because this is right after Fender had passed. And so I was like, I need a game to get lost in. And Pro, it did do that.
It does do that
because
very
there
well.
is so much stuff.
Yes.
And so like I was at that point when I was finishing up, I was just kind of like just going through. I'm doing all the tasks and all the different areas and stuff like that. And that was great. It was therapeutic. It was fun, to be able to just kind of focus on that. But there was a point when I was like, I've got to be getting close to the end, right? And then I go and look and I'm like, oh shit.
I have done nothing to progress the
I haven't been
story.
progressing the main story at all. And so I then go and start doing all of that.
Oh, that's funny.
But, and then I did, yes, kind of like speed through the last little bit of the story and everything. But like that wasn't a con necessarily.
Yeah.
Because there's still so much to do and explore. It's very fun getting lost in all these different areas.
Yeah,
Because
I
in
agree
all of
with
these
that.
areas, there's like quests and missions to do, but there's also side activities. Like in each one, you have to collect shards from those. Oh shit! What do the shards do?
The crystal shards,
Yeah.
they're related to a specific temple that's in a specific portion of the map.
Yes.
And if you collect all of the shards, you get to unlock progressively deeper portions of that temple, and
get
they
better
give you
loot.
permanent buffs.
Oh,
that's
yes.
what it does. So
That's what-
like
you're right,
there's a
you're right.
door that gives you a permanent buff to I think your strength. One gives you
And
a
it's like
perma
in
buff
that
to your
desert
spirit.
cave area?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
That's exactly
I
what the
remember
shards
I
do.
remember it now.
Completely optional, as
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
most things in this game are, but one of the many things on any given map to do to occupy your time.
Right. So, there's that. There's the
Closing rifts.
Closing
One of the
rifts.
big things that you're doing throughout the game. So
because
on
those give
every
you like what 212 power.
they give you a
Inquisition
ton
power.
of power. They give you usually a lot more experience
Yeah.
than a lot of other stuff will do. So closing rifts, which means you have to like fight a couple of waves of demons coming
Mm-hmm.
out of the rift to be able to close it. And depending on what level you are and what you've got, some of those rifts are hard.
Even at like at the beginning of the game,
Yeah.
like the hinterlands is like kind of one of the first intro areas
That's the
in this game.
beginner area.
But you still run into a hard rift super early.
The one with the multiple ice demons.
Yes. Like down in that like valley.
Down in the valley.
Yeah,
Yep.
by the river. Oh.
So this is like both related to the fact that I was unfamiliar with the mechanics, and also they are just a bullshit creature,
They are.
which I have multiple complaints about in this game. But there are so many. I died so much. Even after I like air quotes got the hang of the game and
Yeah.
understood that I needed to be equipping armor, be equipping specific skill sets, how to efficiently use my skills during battle.
Yeah.
Even then, I still died with shocking frequency.
Yeah.
And in hindsight, I am sort of kicking myself that I didn't just reduce the difficulty.
Oh,
like
yeah.
like if nothing else, I feel like that's an easy fix that I should have done early on, because I think I would have had an overall better time with the game if I had. Because to be honest, I wasn't really there for the combat.
Yeah. So
Rifts.
Jumping
yeah,
back.
You can
So we were doing all
rifts.
this. I was trying to close
Find
rifts. The star signs.
Oh yeah,
Astoriums?
the astrolariums,
Yeah,
the
something like that.
astrolabes,
You'd
the
like-
asteriums.
Asteriums. It
the
is that? Okay.
asteriums, yeah.
You had to like connect constellations in the sky, and again, it would like do some lore, give you a buff in some way.
I
Again,
actually
an optional thing.
loved those. Those were one of my favorite little side projects.
I liked them until they started getting very hard.
So actually, the very first Asterium I encountered was the hardest one.
Oh, really?
I fucked around with it for so long, and I was finally like, I'm gonna have to look it up.
It's basically like you try to draw this constellation.
Yes. It's just connect the dots.
Yeah.
You're trying to connect the dots, but you cannot go back over your work.
Yes.
And
You can't reverse.
And you can't reverse. So you have to like have your start and end point eventually circle back around without retracing any of your steps.
Got difficult. Near the
It
end.
did, yeah. It was, but I really, and I eventually figured that one out. I didn't have to look it up.
But so there were a ton of like all these side activities. That's what I mean. You just get totally lost in this.
Yeah.
But one of the other things, going back to what you were saying with the war table and kind of the confusing thing, one of the very huge things, because we'll circle back to combat in just a second. But one of the other like very confusing things for me in this game mechanics that even up until the end and slightly what I was disappointed in was like the crafting inventory system.
Yes. Okay. So the way that crafting really works in Dragon Age, at least for the stuff that really matters, is you've got different types of potions and or grenades that you can craft, like your basic healing potions, your mana potions, the jar of bees, which was low key my favorite item for all of my rogues. I was like, everybody gets bees, jars of bees all over the place. So jars of bees, and then you've got your common sense crafting stuff like pieces of armor, like you can craft chainmail, you can craft gauntlets, greaves for your characters. You can craft mages' robes, and then of course you can also craft weapons.
Right.
So any like weapon schematics, you craft all of these by finding schematics throughout the map.
Right.
So oftentimes when you do a side quest, you get rewards from that side quest. If you're lucky, part of that side quest reward will be schematics, which I think were one of the more useful rewards that you can get beyond just loot that's kind of good, maybe,
Right.
and it wasn't always. But those schematics they give you like a set amount of things that, I phrased that badly. You use specific craftable items in specific schematics. So like with the armor, for example, you've got like 4 different slots, like for higher tier armor, that you have to fill in with, okay, you can pick any type of your many leathers for this slot. Okay, for this other one, you can pick any of these types of stones to give it a different color. For this other one, you need any different type of cloth. So it's kind of like fill in the blanks, like you actually are crafting the armor in real time. You've got leather, you've got metal, you've got stone for color. That totally made sense. But I found that for the most part, crafting armor and weapons was really only helpful in the early to mid game, where they felt powerful enough to actually use, and eventually they became basically like not worth it because they just weren't high enough power for me to really want to mess with it.
Yeah, I agree. I could not find very high tier schematics very much, or high tier armor sets really that I wanted to use. Slash also looked good. I was not a huge fan of like just the overall
ugly.
just the warrior the warrior armor sets were just not great in this game.
The rogue class, which is like, so there are 3 different types of armor. Light, which is specifically for your mages, medium, which is for your rogues, and then heavy armor, which is for your warriors. And the rogue class, the medium armor, those were all the sexiest armors. Those were the best armors. Everything else, the mage robes. I would like to speak to the manager.
I did get Dorian set up later and saw in a nice like topless robe. Showing off them pecs, and I was like, "Oh, this is a good game."
Eventually, I got around to that point, but so the robes were okay. My real complaint is with the fugly hats and helmets.
Yes.
Oh my god, they are all so
bad.
Unforgivably, irredeemably bad.
So bad.
I was like, you know what? It's worth it to die. I'll just go out there and die and be attractive.
I just turned it off where it's like I was wearing a helmet and I got the stats, but you didn't see them because I was just like, the helmets are so stupid.
This is not, they're so
I had
ugly.
like some weird like elvish, like I don't know what it was.
The
like
Orlesian mask?
No, I don't think so.
Never mind.
But like I don't know what it was. Just like all of them I got. I was like, this is dumb. So then I tried to craft armor, and then you would like, depending on what materials you use, like influence its color and influence like how it looks. But you go off of basic, design. And I got like some nasty like red colored one that was like, and then I got like a weird gold at one point. I was like, this is shit. I remembered in Origins and in 2, the costumes and like your cosmetics were so much better. I was really disappointed in that. But tying that back into the crafting thing is that you would eventually unlock like masterwork things that could be crafted, or like you could craft, that could add things and add certain modifiers to all this stuff. And I thought that would do something cool because like they add a modifier, but then also each of the materials that you use add a modifier, and that modifier changes depending on which slot you put that item in. It's just a lot of like,
and the modifiers are
how do I
things
keep
like
track of this?
+6 to strength, +6 to dexterity,
Yeah, plus 6%,
cold resistance,
yeah, heavy
stuff
attack.
like that.
It's different things like that, and it's just like trying to combine all that and remember what you really needed.
What was good for what and
Yes.
what you need. Yeah.
There was not a good way to then even do that and then make sure, okay, but what I'm doing does this actually really work with my build that I've already got? Or am I kind of starting new here?
So
that part got really confusing. And after a while, I found like a good armor set that I liked, and I was just kind of like, cool, I'll keep upgrading this one as I find things. I'm not going to try to do new sets. And same thing, I would get a new weapon and I would just like upgrade the shit out of it until I couldn't anymore and be like, all right. But I never like found a good like set of weapon or armor that I loved the whole time.
I can agree with that. And it actually eventually, I will say, sort of negatively impacted my gameplay experience, because eventually I did catch on. Like, okay, this elemental shit actually matters.
Yeah.
Specifically when you start attempting to fight the dragons.
Yes.
The dragons in question, which are all based on a specific element. The first dragon I encountered was the one in the Emerald Graves, actually.
Oh, I don't think I fought that one.
I didn't encounter a dragon until way late into
Same.
my play. And I think the dragon was ice based. And I fought it, and I was not high enough level to fight it in the first place, but I did get it to about a quarter health and then died anyways.
Oh no.
But so A, I never went back to fight it again. B, I learned from that fight that I, as a person, have a limited amount of time on this earth. And personally, I do not want to waste that time crafting the specific armors for each of my 4 party members to give us the kind of buffs and resistances that I would need to efficiently defeat these dragons.
Right, same.
I totally gave up on that process so early. And I was like, you know what? I'm sure beating the dragons is cool, and I'm sure it's definitely part of this game. Me personally, I'm not going to do that.
Like,
I will admire them from afar.
And I eventually got to a point where I remember like I got some cool buff that like if I was supposed to get knocked down or be killed, basically, I would like revive to half health and then and I finally started figuring out like how to use your abilities to like give your character armor. Like in battle armor, guard.
Yes, how to get guard.
How to give guard, which like gave you basically extra health. And that like took a long time to figure out, wait, what am I doing here? And so it was just a lot of that stuff. I just, the crafting of it, I eventually with you was just like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I eventually see like a cool buff that I'm like, that would be cool to have for my character.
Yeah.
So I would build that. But then pretty much for my other characters, I was just giving them what I found in the world. And usually they got great shit just from like what we talked about at the war table, getting that stuff.
Yeah,
so it
just
really
wandering
kind of
around.
like went on autopilot and I didn't have to worry about it that much.
But I feel like a lot of what we're really complaining about comes down to a common root cause, which is there are so many parts of the game, crucial gameplay mechanics, that are just not explained at all, or that aren't explained well enough for you to truly understand how to optimize on that. The tutorial was very bare bones.
Yeah.
And I feel like we needed a lot more, especially for new players that have never played the game before. I needed a lot more hands-on help to be able to understand some of those systems.
Because a lot of that stuff was new. Like the crafting and stuff, to my memory, if it serves right from 2, like especially to this level, was new. Yeah. And like even though I had played 1 and 2 before, it's not like I was remembering, like all the ins and outs of how all that stuff worked. So it definitely just kind of like added a layer of complexity that fortunately you can kind of work around and don't have to rely on.
Yeah, you don't have to engage.
It kind of also is like a thing like how in depth
Yeah.
into this you want to get, which I guess is kind of a pro in the game, since that you're able to like find that balance that works well of like going super in depth or just being like, fuck it, I'm just gonna like use what I can find.
But also it's kind of a con that a system in the game is so opaque that one of the viable options is I'm just
Ignore it.
not going to deal with that.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, I feel like it should have been done well enough that we would have a better time engaging with that system.
So definitely, I would love to see that if that's a thing in the Veilguard, which I would imagine it is.
And we haven't even really talked about how your skills, how like your character
that's what I was
classes and
gonna like
skills
roll into
build
next,
into
because
this.
since we've kind of like talked about how all this stuff,
Weapons, armor, crafting.
exactly. So how does all that come together now in like the combat phase, which is, a very major part of this game. You're doing a lot of fighting in it. And this one does have a lot of changes from the previous titles. The biggest one being, which I actually very, very much liked, was the tactical camera. You could start
the overhead view.
Because, Dragon Age is like a real-time turn-based combat system where you're constantly engaged in combat. It's not like each character takes turns and they're doing like in the typical
not a JRPG.
JRPG combat system. They're all fighting at once. You can in this one you can pause it by going to this tactical camera, switch over to another one of your characters, plan out like a couple moves and attacks that they'll go do, and and the game sequences out and all that stuff. But it just gives you a really cool like overhead look at things. It makes it easy to kind of know like, oh, I need to go attack this person next. I'm going to have my mage and rogue who has, my ranged units attack all their ranged people.
Is there any cover that you can place your people, your squish your people behind,
Right.
which eventually
bottlenecks,
matters?
like keep your warriors protecting your rogue and your mage, different things like this. And, I thought it was really great because especially with like one of the skills that I used that you unlock through your skill tree, it was like for the warrior class is like a charging bull, I want to say, or something like that.
Yeah.
Where you could like
You
basically
rush forward.
Rushing charge maybe is what it's called.
No, I think it's charging bull.
Is it?
I think
Okay.
you're right about that.
And you can like basically knock over anybody in your way, do a ton of like stun damage to people, but it's so much easier and you get a better benefit from it if you use the tactical camera, because you can like have your dude charge from all the way across the map basically.
Yeah.
Whereas but if you do it in like combat and hit the button for it, he just does a quick little like charge to the person in front of him.
I see.
So it
Okay.
provides some modifiers. But what did you think about it all? This?
So, a lot of mixed feelings here because I feel like in the early game, combat felt really, really weird and stilted because I felt like I was doing no fucking damage. I didn't have many abilities because obviously you get more abilities as you increase your level and you get more skill points to spend on your various ability trees. So in the early game, it was, and especially as the warrior class, just very like in your face, I'm just going to face tank all this damage and just do my little melee swings just on repeat, which is not very rewarding. It's not very strategic. It's not very fun, to be perfectly frank. So those early hours of the game where I really didn't have the flow of skills down were rough.
Yeah.
Those were rough.
Well, that reminds me of like when I first started playing Dragon Age Origins, having come from games where more of the hack and slash gameplay variety. So I thought to like attack, I had to hit my attack button over and over.
Over and over.
But what
You
I was
can just hold
actually
it down.
doing was, well, in Dragon Age Origins, at least back then, I was actually like re-inputting the attack command and interrupting it. So I was like not doing any damage at all.
I see.
And so I was like, what the fuck? I just kept dying so much to like early people until I finally figured, oh, at least in Origins, you input the command for the attack you want to do. You let it basically have your turn of executing that attack, and then you can input the next thing. So I ran into that. So it's kind of funny that still can exist in a way in Inquisition, that you kind of like again. But you have to like kind of figure out like the flow of it.
Yeah, you have to figure out the flow of it. So eventually, as I did start to unlock more of the skills, and the warrior does have some kind of fun skills on their tree, I was much more, and there are various types of warrior trees. There's like the one that is for sword and shield users, which I did not do at all.
That's what I did.
I was two-handed
Oh, sweet. So we
battle
have
axer.
some differences
yes, so
there.
we did have
Okay.
some differences. I was like, shields are for pansies. I'm going in there with just my weapon. So I was very reliant on taunts and shouts routes.
Yeah.
Because those would give me more guard. So then I would just get in there with one of the best warrior skills is like the grapple hook.
Oh, I love that one.
Or like the chain hook or whatever they call it, where
Yeah.
you send out a chain that hooks onto an enemy and drags that enemy towards you. Invaluable for getting ranged characters out of the way and right in front of you so you can start killing them.
I, by the end game, had a combination. By the end game, I did really like my class and like how I had built him out. Again, you now understand why I'm like looking like a weakly little elf just smashing people, and it just doesn't like look right. But that aside, I loved it because yes, I had sword and shields. I was built up on like shield smashes, so like big swinging like stuns with my shields, challenges to pull people away from like taunts and challenges to get people away from my from my rogues and mage, combine the two, and then also I had my charging bolt. So I like had a great like I could play close, I could play far, but I also upgraded the grapple hook to where it could get like 3 people at a time. So
nice.
I do that, pull in 3 people, sweeping shield knock, and then just start like hacking them to pieces while they're stunned.
I'm not sure. I could be wrong about this. I'm not sure if the 2-handed build had that option because my upgrade for the chain hook was I got to add on a stunning kick on the end of it. So I would grapple them towards me and then kick them when they got there, and it would stun them on the ground.
That's nice.
So my build was a little bit different, but I really enjoyed that ability. I also found that the taunts were actually very helpful in the end. I didn't unlock an ability early enough, and I should have. So the evading roll, whatever that one is called.
I didn't get that one.
Oh, it's actually extremely helpful.
Oh, is it? Okay.
So if you're one of the 5 people in America that's playing Inquisition in 2024 for the first time, you're gonna want to get that rolling evasion move for the warrior class way early because it's much more helpful than you think it's going to be. Because it really helped make a lot of your chains of skills flow so much better. I took a lot of damage just to the face on purpose, but I should have had that evading roll in there because it would have made things just go a lot faster for me. But I feel like all of this to say, eventually I really came to enjoy the skill trees, and I did warm up to combat to a certain extent. I still think that I think that there were some problems with combat that could have been solved. Like, for example, on the one hand, it's a good thing to sort of have brain dead activity sometimes. Right. Sometimes that's what you want in the game. On the other hand, I really found myself avoiding combat when I could because it was the same type of enemies over and over
Not a lot
again.
Of variety.
They already don't have much in their individual kits to hit you with. So once you've met one of them, you know exactly how to fight all of the other ones like that, except for the dragons. The dragons were a little bit different. But just I found that combat got really boring for me eventually. And part of that was compounded by the fact that I do feel like a lot of the enemies were way too spongy. Real bullet sponges a lot of those enemies.
Especially late game when you would get to like the fight the ogres, the
darkspawn
ogres and stuff like that. Those guys were a little
not
rough.
Fun. So like the smaller enemies, it was just sort of a mild annoyance. You got to swap at a spider a couple of times and they die. But for the bigger enemies, I was like, man, you might give good loot, but like, do I really want to waste my time on
like 20 minutes in the fight,
20 minutes
fighting
of my
a dragon,
time fighting one dragon, and that's not even the quest I'm on. I'm supposed to be doing some shit over there.
It definitely, and that's where I think like, especially when I did start getting like focusing more on the story later in my playthrough and stuff like that, and I did kind of like have that same feel where it's just like, okay, let's move this along. That's kind of what prompted me to start messing with the crafting system more to figure out how to make things more punishing, so I could be like,
make things faster.
Let's speed these fights up.
Let's speed this up.
So it's interesting, kind of like how it plays in that way. The combat for me, like I agree, could be boring at times. Once I kind of like figured it out and finessed it, I felt better about it and definitely got more enjoyment out of it. Once I got that like multi-hook thing going on with my with my grapple hook, that was just too cool, and I just loved hitting them with the big hits. Because like especially too, like it shows damage numbers that you do. It's like when you do a big hit, like a big number like goes boom, like 900 damage. You're like, oh yeah, got a big hit. And so it's just, fun to do that. The tactical camera also allows you, because it pauses the action. to go and like actually go to your other companions and like I said, use their abilities, do different call outs. Cause like sometimes like the mages have like great area of control things, like huge fireball areas, ice
The
ball.
jar of bees,
The
my
jar
friend.
of bees. I didn't use the jar of bees.
Oh,
I
jar
missed
of
out. I got to
bees
start
is
again.
low-key a great item. Don't sleep on that jar of bees.
And so, it just it's really fun to like mix and match, especially if you do run into an area where you do just get shut down.
Yeah.
And you have to take multiple runs at combat. It's fun to be able to be like, okay, well, that didn't work. I'm going to send Varric over here, block this part off. I'm going to
Get some
have
high ground.
high ground,
Get somebody
yeah.
else behind me so that they're not taking damage to
I'm
the
gonna
face.
I'm gonna do more action because I had by the time I ended, I had like insane guard where it was basically like I can't be knocked over, I can't be like hit from behind, I can't just like if I just held like shield wall, every time I get hit, it like gave me more guard. It was just like ridiculous. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to be an immovable wall here while I just hold off everybody while they're just like, while my other, party members are just smacking down all the enemies. So it made it fun. It made it very like engaging, but yes, sometimes in like the just open exploration of the world, the combat got old.
Yeah. And so the other thing to talk about with the skills is that you're not just managing your players' skills.
Yes.
You
Yes.
also manage all of the skills and build outs for all of your companions.
Yes.
So for example, we talked about this a little bit back when we were both playing the game. For all three of my different mages, which were Dorian, Vanessa, Victoria,
What is her name?
Vivian.
Yes.
My waifu for life. Solas, Dorian, and Vivian. There are three different types of like elemental magic. There's electricity. I don't know why I said it weird like that. There's electricity. Don't worry about that. There's electricity, there's frost, and there's fire.
Yeah.
So I was like, I am not messing with all these different types. I'm not going to do combo builds. Solas is ice and mind, or spirit, or whatever they
Yeah.
called it. Vivian is all fire all the time, and Dorian is all electricity all the time. So that if I knew I was going into a combat where one of them would be more beneficial than the other, there wasn't any question about it. I didn't have to change their gear.
Yep.
I didn't have to change out their skills. I could just sub one of them into my party and be perfectly fine.
Which is easy to do because at multiple places in each of the areas of the game, there are camps that you can go to where
Yes.
you can refill your potions, rest to refill
Change
your
out your
health,
party.
and you can change out your
Yeah.
party. You don't have to always go back to like your main hub place to do
Yes,
that, which is
thank
nice.
God.
Because that would have been a lot.
Yeah, that would have been quite a lot. But so all of this to say is that you're not tied to just the skill tree of just your person. You
Yeah.
do get access to all of the other characters. And when you're in combat, if you decide that you're not really having a lot of success controlling your player character, you can actively control the others.
Yeah.
So not just in the tactical screen, you can swap over to any of your other characters that are alive at will. So like if you want to do something really specific with Varric, you just like L2 or R2 over to him or whatever the command for it is, and you're Varric, and then you're Vivian,
Fully
and
playable-
then you're
playable
Dorian,
as them.
fully playable.
Yeah.
You can manage all of their skills, which does make it feel a lot more dynamic if you're having a lot of trouble with certain combats and like your other people are dying too fast.
Yeah.
You got to figure out what to do differently there.
And it's fun because it lets you have a little like sneak peek into running that class.
You do get to be the mage.
yeah.
You're not totally locked off from it.
Exactly. And like, you'd have to use Varric every once in a while to like unlock a treasure chest or a door or something like that you couldn't get through because my abilities didn't allow. So, again, there's just and that's one of the things that I think is fairly clear from us talking about it, that there's so much to do here that the game kind of constantly throughout toes the line of it being too much or too little. And I feel like it's one of those things, and I can't necessarily tell if that's bad because I had so much fun playing the game. I can't deny it. I spent 90 hours in this thing, like all said and done, and could easily go back for more. I know I didn't do any of the like DLC stuff that there is available and everything like that. So like there's still more I can go back and do. But it does, like, all that to say, these mechanics and different things, I know we don't necessarily want to go like a beat per beat by it, but another big part of this that we haven't really hit on yet is the story of the game. How does all this stuff, which I kind of like, we feel like toes the line sometimes between like, oh, we didn't like that, we really loved this. how does all that combine with the story? And how does like the story affect your overall impression?
So this one's tough because I feel like honestly, just like with the rest of the game, I feel like Dragon Age Inquisition is almost a game at war with itself because there are things that I think it does really well, and then there are a lot of things that I think it did horribly.
Yeah.
Like, I loved the environments. I loved the exploration factors. I liked, at least from like a narrative perspective, most of the characters. Even the characters that I didn't like, I appreciate Sarah, obviously. The rogue, the elf rogue, the skinny one. She's got a horrible haircut.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, she's terrible. I hate her guts.
I did not like her, and I didn't like the random dude you met later, Cole.
Oh, Cole was so creepy.
Where did his design? He did not seem like he fit in this game at all.
He really didn't. Like, and not even just his outfit, his face, like his actual character design. It was both ugly, which is in my case a cardinal gaming sin.
In an RPG where you want to be able to romance and bump uglies with everybody,
hotties or nothing.
Exactly.
Hotties only. So I hated Cole. I hated Sarah. Actually, everyone else I could find something to like about them.
Yeah.
So those were the only two that I hated. So all this to say, I feel like there are things that were done really well in the game and other things that were done absolutely terribly. And one of the things that I'm really lukewarm on, and I feel like that's the best way to describe it, is the actual story. So not including the character stuff, not including the stuff that you can just do on the side for your other companions that isn't really part of the story. I felt like the main story beats just really weren't motivating me. So the whole point of the game is you're trying to solve the mystery of what actually happened at the temple that caused the cataclysm and the rift to open.
Yeah.
And that was motivating to a certain extent, specifically in the way later, like it's probably got to be the fourth or fifth major story quest that you do where you actually go into the Fade and you actually put together the pieces of those memories.
The Fade parts are always the best of the Dragon Age games.
That part was really fun. I liked that part a lot, and it made the story feel like it mattered.
Yeah.
So I liked that part a lot, but so much of the rest of the story, I just felt like I don't care about this. And honestly, I think a lot of that came down to the fact that I felt super disconnected and very unmotivated by the villain.
Yes.
Corypheus. I couldn't have given fewer fucks about what that guy was up to.
Same.
Like, he feels like just a random dude that shows up out of nowhere. He's ugly, for starters.
Yeah.
A cardinal sin of gaming for me.
He looks like a Resident Evil like character.
He looks like someone just took a bunch of pieces of like other bodies and kind of slapped. He's very Frankenstein together.
Yeah.
And instead of making him feel menacing, it just kind of made him look silly to me.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not intimidated by this guy. I don't think this guy's motivations are any good. I don't think this guy's a good villain, frankly. So I felt very unmotivated by his whole deal.
Yeah. I will say that kind of the same thing. Corypheus didn't necessarily hit for me either. And I feel like this could be also due to the initial gap in time that I took from starting the game to finishing the game. Because I did start the game originally, like when it came out. Played, I want to say like 30 hours. Like
so you got a fair amount.
But like I said, I hadn't gotten to Corypheus yet at that point. And then I later restarted because I had taken such a long gap. I was like, I want to restart where this is. Still didn't get to Corypheus just because of that. Before I got distracted by something else. We're really selling this game, you know it. But like, and then when I did wind up coming back to it and Corypheus hit, I was just kind of like, oh, you're the bad guy.
Yeah.
And why?
Exactly. Like, and so to be fair,
and like, I don't think because you played it much more condensed.
Oh yeah, I played it a lot faster. I don't think
that like I really missed the reason, right?
You really didn't. So if you find a lot of lore, and the story does actually just kind of tell you. So actually, from like a lore perspective, I can appreciate what Corypheus was on about. So the TLDR is that he was a mage. I think maybe even a Tevinter mage. Yeah. Don't quote me on that.
Tevinter. That's why I thought that's what I was looking for. Yeah. The Tevinter mage.
He may or may not have been a blood mage. I can't exactly remember that. But in the the political context of Dragon Age, that's got a lot of baggage attached to it. Like, blood mages exist. Some people think they're the superior form of mage. The rest of the world is like, y'all y'all are fucked up.
Yeah.
so it's a very divisive issue. But Corypheus's whole deal is he's like 1,000 or so years ago, he somehow found a way into the Fade, like to the home of the gods, and he went to like go meet the gods basically, and he tells you at one point that like he found their thrones empty. So his whole thing is like, hey, I've seen what's beyond the veil, I've seen into the realm of the gods, there's nothing there, we're the gods. So like his motivators are actually kind of cool,
Yeah.
but he doesn't do those justice. Like that's what I'm getting at here, is that him as a character, he does not really embody those ideas well enough to make them feel impactful.
Well, because he's also fairly
Ugly? He is quite ugly.
Yes, fairly. Can't think of the word I'm trying to say. But basically, he doesn't feel like he pops up enough in the story to make it.
Yes,
he's
an absentee villain.
Yeah, it's like you meet at one point like some of his lackeys who are like, and you deal with them, and you have like bigger run-ins with them. I feel like, and it's more like, oh, it's like the threat of Corypheus is coming. Corypheus is coming. You know, it's like, oh, he's gonna be here anytime, and you see him in like a couple cutscenes. And then it's like you run into him at the end and are fighting him as the main villain fight.
I feel like he was not present enough. He wasn't menacing enough. And honestly, could have been hotter. He could have been a hotter villain. So I feel like was really not the jam for me.
Yeah.
So that's so overall the like primary elements of the story just weren't doing it for me, except for that section with the Fade. That was very cool.
That part is always good.
My real motivator for continuing to play the game really did boil down to the companion side stories.
Yes.
That's where I feel like the game felt more impactful to me, and I actually felt motivated to go after those.
Because I feel like it does do an excellent job of you really feeling like as the game progresses, you are really getting to know, you're really getting to win over the trust of your companions, and eventually romancing, and it's just like that. They do that so well. I agree. That is where the magic of this game lies, I feel like.
So actually, so your companions, let's do a little roll call of the companions real quick. Your mages, we've got Dorian. He's a mage from Tevinter. Ooh. And his whole backstory is that like he's not with his family, okay? Like his dad's a blood mage. And like his family really wants him to take up the family mantle of continuing to be like head blood mage.
Yeah.
Oh, he's a magister. That's what, so his father is a magister, which I think is a blood mage by default. So they're like king mages or whatever, like miniature prime minister mages. So Dorian is basically rejecting his family's whole deal, and that's why he's not in Tevinter anymore. Yeah. Very cool. Then we've got Vivian. She's a noble from Orlais, which is just France. Orlais is just France. It's just a very silly France-coded place, and they all wear masks and like masquerade gear all the time. I loved that.
That place was cool.
Yeah, so that place was cool. I loved just the silliness of Orlais. Also, this is a side note, I want to commend the entire world of Dragon Age, Inquisition at least, for choosing to not make the British accent the default accent of otherness. Yeah. To commit to the French accent for all of your Orlesian side characters is a monumental choice. And I like at so many points in the game, I was like, wow, they really like full sent this France thing.
I love it.
And honestly, I did really appreciate it and I really liked it. So more of that silly, I hope the next time it's Germans. I hope they just keep getting wilder about it. So I like that part a lot. So you've got Vivian, she's your Orlesian noblewoman / mage. She's also more like your conservative Republican mage, if you will, because she really supports a lot of the political systems in place that kind of like keep the mages in check instead of just letting them run totally free and wild. She's sort of more for like the law and order section of the mages. Then you've got Solas, and he's on the complete other side of the spectrum. He is a mage that's like also outside of the circle, which is sort of the authoritarian structure that controls the mages. Yeah. He left the circle. cool. He's doing his own thing now. He's very connected to the Fade, and you sort of get the idea that he's more pro mage freedom, which is a very dramatic political stance to have. So those are your mages. Then you've got Varric Tethras, obviously your rogue. We've already talked about him.
Amazing, wonderful character.
Amazing, wonderful character. You've got Sarah, the worst character in the world. We hate her. But she was really helpful, at least in terms of utility, because I got to make Varric my crossbow slash...
because he's got Bianca.
He's got Bianca. My
He's
crossbow,
the best crossbow in the world.
Which left Sarah, because I was never going to use Cole over my cold dead body.
Right.
Over my cold dead body. So that left Sarah then to be both my bow archer, which is actually a different class of weapon. She served as both my bow archer and, depending on what I needed it, my daggers, my double daggers person. So even though I hated her as a character, her utility was great. And then there was Cole, who is low-key a demon, but he wants to be human. And your quest with him is you can help him try to achieve that goal, or you can guide him down a different path. I will never know because didn't do it. I went, thanks, but no thanks. Fuck you, I'm out. And I never talked to him again. And then on your warrior side, you've got Cassandra.
Cassandra's great.
Your classic bread and butter warrior. Law and order personified. An not an ex-princess, but like a princess of some nation.
Right.
And she just kind of like doesn't really want
like,
to be a princess. Yeah,
I'd
she's like,
fight.
that's not for me. I'm a woman of the people. So Cassandra rules. I love her.
Yep, she's great.
Then we've got Blackwell. Blackwell wound up being my soft spot.
I did like Blackwell too.
Actually really
I didn't
liked
find him
Blackwell.
till way late.
Me too. Like, I accidentally didn't do his quest.
Yeah.
And then I found him and I was like, oh my God, this guy rules.
Yeah, he was awesome. I did like him.
So Blackwell was really cool. He's one of the Grey Wardens.
Which
Or
the Grey
is
Wardens,
he?
I know you miss out a lot on that because in Origins, your character is a Grey Warden.
Yes, I got that from the lore videos.
And
so
so
that
like,
helps.
it's like, that's really cool. And I always have a soft spot for the Grey Wardens as well because of that.
So you've
because
got
it's
Blackwell,
I started with them.
your Grey Warden. He's also kind of a law and order man to a certain extent, but he's a little bit loosier-goosier with it. And he's not really afraid to sort of go outside the law to do things that need to be done.
Yeah.
So loved him. And then actually there's Iron Bull.
I did like
He's
Iron Bull.
He's the only other Kunari character if you're not a Kunari. So in a lot of people's cases, he's going to be the only Kunari companion that you ever have.
Also, fun fact, voiced by Freddie Prinze Jr.
Which is insane. That's crazy. So you've got Iron Bull. I did like him, but for whatever reason, I guess because I was already a warrior and I liked Blackwell so much that I just never used him. And because I never really had him in my party, I never really felt super motivated to pursue his storyline. So honestly, a lot of his storyline is a mystery to me. I didn't get very far with
if I pursued his storylines as much, but I did use Iron Bull. He was always my backup warrior because I was the Sword and Shield, and Cassandra was started Sword and Shield, and then so I didn't want to mess that up as already her character thing. And then Blackwell, I believe also is Sword and Shield.
Yeah, he is.
So like Iron Bull's the only other like double. So I was like, okay, I don't want to be doubling up on this. I'm gonna have the one of the two.
I mean, my response was exactly the same, but for the opposite reason.
Right.
I was
You
the
were already the
two-hander,
two.
so I needed two people with swords and shields to be my backups.
So but I really liked Iron Bull.
I mean, he's cool.
One of my favorites.
His design is really fun.
Yeah.
I liked his personality. He's like the leader of a band of mercenaries, which is very cool. He's kind of like jovial about it. He's a little jokey, but he also has a serious side, which I really appreciated. He seemed really cool. I just like never got around to it, because you have so many other characters.
Exactly. And I definitely didn't, and as part of it went on, I didn't do like all of the story quests.
No, I didn't
like
either.
especially because like I've known Varric from the previous game, so I didn't feel the need to do as much for him. So I did do some stuff with for Dorian a little bit. I did some things for Cassandra. But I wound up doing a lot, and I think we actually both kind of like carried over because as you get to know the characters more, and especially as you start going towards a romance, you get to do like certain specific quest lines. And we both kind of doubled up on this one because we did choose our eventual romance partner
Josephine.
to be Josephine,
Which is
our
none
diplomat.
of your actual companions. She's just sort of one of your assistants. She's in your retinue, if you will. But she's just delightful.
She is delightful.
So here's the thing. I actually found a lot to like about most of the characters. So the question of who I was eventually going to romance was honestly very, very difficult.
It was hard.
But if you know me in real life and you especially know my preferences with when it comes to anime. The Ojo Sama, the princess character, is one that I just cannot get over. So even though Cassandra is a princess on paper, she's not an Ojo Sama.
Cassandra is where I did start. And then I met Dory and I was like, hello, sir.
So I wanted to romance Dorian so bad, but because I was a female person,
you couldn't.
I couldn't. He wouldn't have me.
I should have gone after Dorian then. Damn it.
I kept trying. I was like, so, and he was like, no. We don't do that here. And I was like, damn it, I really fucked up. If only I had known.
Yeah, but Josephine's quest I think was really fun. It also dealt a lot in Val Royale because it's like trying to like establish her family back as like a credible noble.
Because I think that they're like super impoverished.
Yeah, because they like bad alliances made in the past, and like Josephine's just like trying to hold her family's estate together, so it's like getting her back in like some form of power, and so it's really fun. There's like assassins that you have to like have to protect her from and coordinate, and it just got to be a really fun quest line.
Yeah, I liked her a lot.
So that was really fun to get to do that, and then obviously ended with the romance.
On a separate note, I never will. I'm going to say this right off the bat. I will never play Dragon Age Inquisition ever again. I feel like, I'm just going to say it. I feel like I got what I came for, and I have no motivation to go back and do things differently. But if I did, if I get laid off my job and I've got years on my hands while I job hunt, am I right? I thought Cullen was really sweet.
Yeah.
I thought he was a cutie. I thought he was a sweet little sweetheart. And I was
especially in like the court intrigue one.
Oh my God, yes.
And you're like talking to him.
Everybody's hitting on him and he's not interested.
He's like, no, please. Please
just stop.
Continue, but stop.
Especially since I was like a big Kunari lady. I was like, let me carry you off to our boudoir, little small man. I thought he was such a cute little sweetie.
Yeah.
And then actually, even though I didn't like pursue this at all, I liked the intrigue of Liliana.
Yeah,
I thought she was an interesting, pretty complicated character.
Well, and it's fun too that like there's a point where you kind of like in the quest line with Josephine when you're romancing her, Liliana comes up to you and is like, hey, you better be of good intent with her.
Because they're besties. They're good friends.
And, so it's kind of this thing of just like, okay, sorry, I'll be a good boy.
I mean, I could be nice to both of you. I tried. It didn't work.
And then she's like, we're not friends in that way.
I liked Liliana, though, because like from a story perspective, she has the most ties to what's going on because she and Cassandra, I should both say, she and Cassandra were both basically direct reports, or however you want to say it, to Divine Justinia. So they have a lot of emotional ties to what happened at the Cataclysm. They both feel like they have lost their mentor, their friend, their leader. And Liliana especially is in like a crisis of faith.
Yeah.
Because if divine Justinia could be just obliterated like that, then are there really any gods? And I think that her story was really interesting.
Yeah, it was great stuff.
Yeah.
And she's a great character too, like I said, from the previous two games and stuff too. Like it's just so fun to get a continuation and see more and more of her.
Quick side complaint. At the section in the masquerade ball, I was furious. I was fuming. I was foaming at the mouth with rage that each of your characters didn't get a fancy costume. They all got like a basic matching uniform, and it was so ugly.
That's what I mean. The costumes of like the clothes was not great in this game. The cosmetics.
The cosmetics were bad, and the fact that my pretty characters didn't get to wear their pretty Barbie clothes to the masquerade ball, I was so mad.
Yeah. It was not a great time. But,
so I liked that quest as a whole. I thought it was honestly one of the highlights for me.
Because that was it's like a very like murder mystery-esque kind of thing.
Yeah, it's not combat. Like there's a little bit of combat on the sides, but that's not the point. The point is it's a murder mystery.
Like political intrigue and stuff. And I was like playing this mission, and I was like, okay, whenever you get to this, you will love this mission. If you think nothing else of this game, if you like nothing else, you will like this one.
The masquerade and the whole section in the fade, those were the two highlights of the game for me. So anyways, the long story short is, what were we talking about? The story? I feel like the story was honestly kind of a letdown, but the individual characters held up the game for me.
Right. So, and I agree with that too. So all of this being said, all of these things that we've talked about, because we've talked about quite a lot, because as we said, this game has quite a
There's
lot
just
to do
a
with it.
lot
There's
going
a lot
on.
going on. What were your overall thoughts, opinions, like closing thoughts on Dragon Age Inquisition?
It is so tough because some of my issues with the game are just related to the fact that by now it is dated.
Yes.
You mentioned very early on about like the fact that you can go anywhere, and to be clear, compared to Origins, I can understand that perspective. But the way that you traverse the physical ground was so fucking janky.
Yes.
Like you couldn't go over small rocks. Your character just couldn't figure it out. You would have to go around.
Like do a weird jump.
Anytime you were trying to get up an incline, any mountain, any hill that was even slightly too steep, can't do it. Not today.
Yep.
Stars. Just can't do it.
But it would like look like it was a pathway.
It would look like you could, but then you couldn't.
Yeah.
And I found that infuriating. So even though I eventually did really come to like the exploration factors, that was only after I realized don't leave the prescribed path.
Yes.
You will have such a better time if you just stay on your variety of roads. You can branch off, but those had better still be roads because otherwise you're not going fucking
Having a bad
anywhere. You're going to have a bad time. So I like the exploration. I like the characters. I did eventually sort of warm up to the combat to an extent, but really my final thoughts are I feel so neutral about this game. I feel incredibly neutral about Dragon Age Inquisition. I'm glad I played it, but would I ever go back and play it again? Hell no.
Yeah.
I will never do that again.
I agree. I think it's definitely dated enough at this point, especially with Veilguard coming out, which from again, we know nothing about it and hope to play it soon. But looking at it, it obviously looks like it has like the flair and like the movement and the things of like a current game. So I feel like it's going to hold up in that regard. So that's what I mean. Like, especially with the Veilguard coming out, unless you're already a diehard series fan of the game, I don't know necessarily if it's worth necessarily the going back to, just because there are, if you're looking for a deep RPG experience, I think there are modern comparisons to it that would honestly be better the time.
Octopath Traveler 2.
But I do have to say, for me, as kind of like my wrap above it, I think it was for when I did wind up finishing and playing it, I think it was the perfect time to have done it because I was in the mindset to just be like, let's see what you got.
You needed a distraction.
Exactly.
And everybody, that's a totally valid reason to enjoy a game.
And I think that really pushed the game for me. I do think because like I do have the experience and now like, yeah, I'm still excited about Veilguard. I kind of like agree with you in our general sentiment of like, this game has a lot of things it doesn't do very great, but it has a lot of things that it does do good. And, you know, and it's like kind of like perfectly meets in the middle. But I do have that background with the other games enough that I was like, man, I'm in this enough. I like this world enough. I like these characters. Cause again, like you said, the characters do really give it that heart. And I just think that still gives me the excitement of being like, cool, I played this one. What's Veilguard got?
Yeah.
You know, and so I'm kind of, it's still like, I enjoyed it. Do I need to go back to it? No, because I'm excited to see what Veilguard's going to give me.
And do we want to do one last mention about sort of how Inquisition actually ends if you do the DLC? So
I suppose so, yes, because I think
I will lightly touch on this because this ties into my final thoughts about Veilguard, because the things that I really want to see from Veilguard are a more motivating primary story.
Yes.
And in my case, based on what you've just heard, that's going to relate to the villain. Mm-hmm. And what Inquisition sort of buries the lead with is that if you do eventually play through all of the DLC, it low-key sets up Solas to be the villain of the next game. Yeah. And I really wished that there had been more clues about that. Yes. Because I would have chosen to spend a lot more time with Solas.
I would have appreciated if they had switched out like the second like lackey of Corypheus. If that had been like a betrayal and that's Solas.
Yes. That would have been super interesting.
At the very end, you get this cutscene of Solas. It's even a bigger spill and reveal for me at the very end of the game in the final cutscene where Solas quasi seems to kill what is her name? Shit. I'm going completely blank.
Her name.
Morgan's mother.
Oh Yes, I also don't remember her name, but she's very pretty.
She is.
She's beautiful.
But her mother, who I'm blanking on her name, also
she's
an M.
kind of one of the gods.
Yeah, she's like a god character of this world, and like Solas just seems to straight up kill her.
Yeah.
And so that is what I'm talking about. Like that would have been way more impactful in the beginning, and now I do. And / I'm curious to see how much this will carry over to Veilguard since they did the name change. It was supposed to be Dragon Age Dreadwolf, which definitely was supposed to have a very heavy Solas focus.
Oh, yeah.
And so now I'm curious to see if they realized, yeah, we kind of fucked up. And that's part of the reposition with Veilguard to be like, yeah, we can't really rely on Solas being the big bad here because we kind of fudged up. If you don't do every interaction with Solas, you're not going to get these hints into why
my prediction is that that's not the case. I think he is still going to be the bad guy of Veilguard because his whole motivator was, I think he wanted to like tear down the walls between reality and the Fade. So the fact that he is called, sometimes people refer to the Fade as the Veil.
Yeah.
So the fact that you are Veilguard sort of implies that you are still trying to stop what
that's
he
true.
wanted.
That's true.
So I think that's where Veilguard is going. If so, I will at least have more attachment to Solas as a villain than I ever had for Corypheus.
Yeah.
So I hope they don't flub that. If I can't walk over
Flemeth is Morgan's mother's name. Sorry, I had to look that up.
That's okay. Makes perfect sense. If I can't walk over small rocks without problems, the game is going back to the store. If they haven't fixed the janky-ass traversal, it will be a no-go for me. And the other thing I just already know I'm going to do, because even though it looks like they kind of sped up the pace of combat from the trailers that we've seen, I'm still not confident about that. I'm going to play on easy mode. I don't care. I'm not there for the combat.
Yeah.
I'm there for what I hope is going to be a good story and great side characters, and honestly collecting little herbs around the maps because I find that quite soothing.
Isn't it? It's great.
That's the part that was fun for me.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. That's kind of basically what I look like. Again, it's a series that I've played so much and so I'm already invested in it. So I know that that's like the good thing I'm looking for. I do want like updated crafting. I want that to be more, because like I love the crafting stuff. I love doing that and getting a sick piece of armor.
I was going to say I wouldn't mind if they took the crafting out entirely. If they yoinked it straight out of there.
I just want the balance, I think, there of like, I love like the crafting just not quite be so damn difficult, and to have it be more rewarding with like actually cool looking stuff, or to have more control where even you could like choose the colors of the things and it not just be like, oh, you used a red metal, you have a red armor. You know what I mean?
Or for you to be able to upgrade Jar of Bees to Jar of Wasps. Wouldn't that be fun, everyone? To canteen. Barrel of Bees even.
Go to Barrel of Monkeys?
That would be
get ready.
Now we've got Barrel of Bees.
Barrel of Bees.
That would be so fun.
Yeah. I think overall, like it does same for me. Like I can't strongly say I love it, but I can't strongly say I hate it either. Like I will say another quick huge selling point for me is the soundtrack is fantastic.
The soundtrack is
Trevor Morris is the composer for that, and like the theme, Journey to Skyhold are two fantastic tracks.
Great track.
And I think that also does a lot to elevate the game itself too.
Yeah. My TLDR on Dragon Age Inquisition, like if somebody asked me, should I play it? I would honestly say probably not. like no lie. Maybe not now.
Yeah.
If you had played it back in 2014, I feel like you would probably have really fond feelings for it. But in a present day context, unless you play Veilguard and you wind up being a diehard and you do want to know more about the previous games, sure, you can.
Yeah.
You can go back to Inquisition and have a neutral to good experience. But do I think you need to? Absolutely not. Save yourself those years. We all have finite time on this earth. You do not need to go back for this game.
And with that, everybody, we hope that this was a better than neutral and enjoyable time.
Comment down below. Just say neutral.
How'd you feel about this episode?
Neutral.
It was
pretty neutral.
But thank you for hanging out with us as we did a pretty
big deep dive. Sorry,
on a big old hefty game of Dragon Age Inquisition. So thanks for hanging out with us, everybody. We will obviously, as we jump into Dragon Age Veilguard, whenever we get the chance to, we'll come back and let you know how we feel and what we think about it as well. I still am excited to jump into it eventually whenever we do get to it. Just because I do think that, like we said, BioWare builds great worlds, and I think that's where they shine, and this game does that in spades. And so I'm excited to see that carry over. But if you have played Dragon Age Inquisition, Inquisition. If you have got into Veilguard already, if you want to share some of your first impressions, spoiler free, please, because we are trying to stay safe on that. But let us know your thoughts of Inquisition. Write into the show at teamchatpockets@gmail.com. Comment below wherever you're listening to or watching the show. Jump over to Discord and talk about it with us there. We would love to hear from you. But until our next episode, everybody, thanks for hanging around. I am one of your hosts, Jarrett Wilson, joined to my right by Rachel Mogan.
Adios.
We'll see you on the next episode.